I'm very curious about where you have found maybe unique places or really important places to integrate AI and machine learning, like data analytics tools into your workflows, and if you have seen benefit from integrating experimental sort of automated processes to the same end as AI and machine learning based automation, or if there's like a trade-off or an interplay between the two sorts of automation.
I think, one thing to comment on, I think it really starts with the data, like the data ingestion process. There's so much you can do on automating just how you handle data from the very beginning of your pipeline. And, in our early days, we were ingesting the world's public data. And so we were bringing in data from many, many different studies with all sorts of different biological and technical confounders. And I think that's actually much harder than the data that comes out of our own systems. Like when we control everything in terms of exactly how the experiments were run, exactly how the data was produced, that's actually a much easier problem. I think it's really harmonizing data across different systems, different batches, where a lot of the work is around bringing that data in properly and making it ready for machine learning models. And this is where I think a lot of the software automation and kind of these large-scale kind of compute and experimental systems was really a large focus for us.
Yeah, I'll echo that. A lot of our automation comes into like standardized image processing pipelines. We have an AFAR pipeline is what we call it, which I will screw up the acronym, but we published on it. And if you want to read more about our image processing pipeline, that's a big source of automation for us. And another one is just on how we think about our workflows within the business, even beyond the lab of like we do use LLMs a lot to look at the output of the data and look for novel biology as a starting spot for some of our research. We look at LLMs for really anything that we have a set process for. Like we were experimenting the other day with, can you use LLMs to review license agreements on external data sets and flag what the problems are there, and so that our legal team can spend less time reading all of that information. And I don't know if that will go anywhere or not, but really trying to say, like, what are the spots as a business that we know what our requirements are and how can we make them go faster and more seamlessly?
Yeah, so a couple of things here. It's kind of interesting though. So on a day-to-day basis, we as a software development company in particular use LLMs in particular to help us on a daily basis, but more thinking about like what do we do in the industry to help address this challenge. I always think that wet lab automation's got this really interesting role to play, and it comes back to data. As in, I see a piece of wet lab automation with a full software stack kind of has the opportunity to own this, I don't know what you think of it, like a holy trinity of data, like what did I intend to do, what actually happened, and then what's the raw data that's coming off it, and then package it up. Because the data standardization is a huge issue, and then hopefully package it up and then make it available to be findable for something else to utilize. And I think right now, apart from working in partnership with other players who are trying to implement this, we aren't necessarily like developing AI ourselves, but we're definitely facilitating a lot of the application of that through the huge amounts of data that we're producing.
From Twig's point of view, we've taken a sort of an agentic view of this. So there's specific AI ML workflows and at each stage of our process. So the first one is we've have a massive metabolic map of all known biochemistry, and we search that using won't go into details, but Monte Carlo tree simulation and reinforcement learning, and we're reinforcing the algorithms with our own data, and that's a fairly specific task. And then another one is around enzyme engineering and how we can create like a Bayesian optimization workflow to, as you mentioned before, in terms of taking data and then we do an experiment and then suggesting the next round of experiments. So we don't see, it's not like a one like LLM will rule them all. I think we're sort of orchestrating multiple of them, and I think the main thing is ensuring that your data layer and your data infrastructure is set up and built so that your experimental data, not just the raw values that come off, but all of the contextualization around that is available, because that's all the context that the sort of the algorithms require. And so we've actually spent probably more time on the data engineering than we have on the actual ML at this point. But we've made a lot of progress on both sides.